Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs, and today I have week 9 of my 12 weeks of Christmas series, so let's jump right in. So I am making a set of cards here. A girlfriend of mine reached out to me and asked me to make her some Christmas cards, and they had to be non-traditional and they couldn't have gold in them. So I am going to use champagne, which you will have seen from the thumbnail. She okayed champagne, so that was okay. But yeah, I didn't get to use gold, which you guys know if you've watched my channel for a while. Gold is probably like my standard favorite color. But yeah, so those were kind of the rules for this set of cards, and I'll show you what I made. So I am going to make a set of mini slimline cards, which I like to do 6 by 6 inches and then score at the 3-inch mark. That's my preferred. And you can see here I'm cutting down 6 bases. I will do everything very assembly line style because I find that way easier when you're making multiples of the same card. And I won't show you every step for every part of the cards, but I will show you enough that it kind of makes sense what I'm doing. So I did cut down all of my bases to start, and now I am scoring them at the 3-inch mark. And as I said, I do kind of do it assembly line style, just because I find that way easier, honestly. So I am going to do this. And this is sped up quite a bit so that you didn't get too bored with watching the same kind of repetitive thing over and over. I promise I won't show every step of every card in here. I'm just kind of showing you the measurements and everything like that to start with. So for my panel, I did want it to be some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. So I am going to cut down my panel. At this point, I am cutting it the full face of the card front, which is the 6 by 3 inches. That's just because I wanted to bring in the Deckled trimmer and add a Deckled edge to them. So I'm doing this so that it's the right size currently, but it's going to be trimmed down a little bit so that you can see the champagne cardstock behind the Deckled edge of the panel when I get there. So I am going to also bring in my champagne cardstock. This is my favorite glitter cardstock right now for who knows what reason. I just am so in love with this color. And I am going to cut that down to be about 1/8 of an inch smaller than the actual base. And then I'm not going to do anything else to it. So I do cut it down to be 1/8 of an inch smaller than my base, and then my panels will be 1/8 of an inch smaller than the glitter mat. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, you guys can always ask me, and I can write the measurements for you if you'd like. I usually don't because I eyeball a lot of things, so I don't always have exact measurements to share with you. And I have had people comment about the waste of cardstock on this. I promise you that I don't waste any cardstock, especially glitter cardstock. The bases, the white base that I cut, I save those and turn them into like ATC bases or stuff like that, or I die cut them, or I use them to layer up colored die cuts or stuff like that. Like, I don't ever throw out my cardstock unless it's a completely unusable scrap. Then that's of course a different scenario, but yeah, no waste happens. I use everything that I trim off of my cards. So, and of course this is for a friend as well, so I'm going to use like the fun supplies, right? And I am going to cut down the edges here to create that cool deckled effect. And I did kind of move it along the edges of the decal trimmer. If you are familiar with the decal trimmer, it starts out with a very subtle decal at the top and then gets to be a more dramatic decal at the bottom. So I kind of moved it around it as I was trimming it just to create a different deckled edge so it wasn't exactly the same. And now of course there are dies for this as well. I don't own any of them. I own the trimmer, and I love the trimmer. I think it adds such a beautiful subtle decal, and you'll see that when I hold them up in the end, but I like that. I think it looks really nice. So I have the Tim Holtz brush strokes stamp set here, and I'm going to bring in 3 different colors of Distress Oxide ink, and I'm doing 2 of each color. So you see there I have Rustic Wilderness. I'm going to bring in, I believe I do Villainous Potion next, and I'm going to finish with Prize Ribbon. And now this is a brand new stamp set to me. I mean, it's not a new stamp set, it's been out for a long time, but I only recently got it. So I am needing to double stamp, or even I think on this purple, I actually triple stamp it just to get a good impression with the brush stroke. Now, if you were only making one card, it could totally be believable that you literally just did this painted stroke. It would look so cool. However, because I'm doing a set and they're obviously very uniform, you can't really say that you brush stroked these, but there are several other different paint strokes in this set. They're stunning. I can't wait to use them on other projects. But for this, I really wanted my cards to be kind of uniform as it's a set that goes together. The only real difference is the colors. And I am going again. I mean, I know Rustic Wilderness is a more traditional color than, say, maybe Prize Ribbon or Villainous Potion, but I just love how dark these colors are. And I thought the three went really well together as a set, as they're all newer colors from Tim Holtz. I believe they all came out this year. Rustic Wilderness may have come out last year, but they're all new colors, and I love the tone of them. They're all that darker, richer color, so I thought they were really pretty. So I set them aside to dry, and then now I am going to heat emboss my sentiment. And this is a very small sentiment. It just says Merry Christmas on it, and it's by Simon Says Stamp. It's the Christmas Cheer stamp set, and I am going to white heat emboss. Now, I chose white just because I wanted it to match the bases of my card, because I do prefer a white base. I find them easier to write on personally. You could of course do a colored base and then add a white panel inside if you wanted to, but I didn't know if my friend was going to need to mail these or anything, so I didn't want to add a whole bunch of bulk to them. So I do just kind of do a more layered card, like a very thin layered card, and I don't add a ton of dimension to these. You could absolutely, like if I was doing this for me to send to somebody, I would have added more dimension. But because it's not for me to send and I don't know what she needs to do with them, I did kind of end up leaving them a bit more flat with less dimension, but totally up to you. So here I'm just going to heat emboss, and this is a super fine detail powder by Ranger. I find for this really small, dainty Christmas sentiment that I prefer their super fine detail stuff. And I am going to cut a snowflake out of the center of these panels. So I did actually try to tape down the snowflake, but because it's glitter cardstock, it wouldn't stick worth a hoot. My like it was a piece of like washi tape, a low tack tape, and it wouldn't stick. So I'm just going to hope that it stays in the center as I run it through my Gemini, and then I lift it out. And luckily, none of them shifted, because otherwise I'd had to not use it as my base. I do need the edges to be intact. And you could have like cut 2 out of 1 panel, but I only needed 1 snowflake per each base, so I only cut out 1. But if you were concerned about wasting cardstock, you could absolutely have cut out more die cuts in the center. As long as you didn't get too close to the edge, you could definitely pull that off. And then here I'm just going to kind of give you an idea of what I want my card to look like in the end. I did kind of play around with my idea for a little bit, but I really was going for kind of a more simple but kind of elegant look is kind of where I was going here. So I don't have a ton of color. I don't have a ton of dimension. You could absolutely, and I seriously pondered it, add some layers behind the little snowflake and give it more bulk. But again, I didn't know if she needed to mail them. I didn't know. So I didn't want to add a whole bunch of dimension and layers to something and then have it be a nightmare for her to try to mail. So I'm going to glue the snowflake directly onto the base. And I do use an acrylic block to weight it down. And I did use my Barely Art glue there just because it was a delicate snowflake and I just find that easier. And then here I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe glue for the panel. And again, this is only because I have it and because it's easier to do big areas with that glue. Now, keep in mind with this, I did put glue all over the background. And now I'm going to set my Misty on top to make sure that my glue adheres to this glitter cardstock. Do not set them on top of each other when you set them under the Misty to let them adhere, because there's a hole in the middle from where we cut the snowflake out. And ask me how I know this. I didn't do it on these ones, but I have done it. And then you're going to glue it down to your base once everything's adhered. And I do make sure to go around the snowflake to make sure nothing sticks up funny in the center and then kind of props up on the card. But I think they turned out really pretty. And I am going to go a little bit extra here. You guys, if you've been on my channel a hot minute, you know that I love all the bling and all the shiny things. So I am going to add a gem to the center of the snowflakes. That is the dimension that I couldn't refuse adding. I love dimension so much, this was a little struggle for me. I really wanted to add more dimension, but as I said, I don't want them to be difficult for her to mail. So if that's what she needs to do with them. So I am going to add a gem to each of them. I think it was a Nuvo Pure Sheen crystal gem. I think that's what these are. Everything's linked and listed down below if you're ever curious exactly what I've used. And I just put one large one in the center of each snowflake just to add a little extra bling on that side there. And I am going to show you making envelopes for these as well. Of course, I'm going to use the 123 punch board from We Are Memory Keepers. You don't need to use that. If you have a slimline die, that would work even better. But this is just what I'm going to show you. So here I am doing a 3x6. So I do need to cut my cardstock to 7 5/8, and I am going to have to score at 2 3/4. So I've brought out my big 12x12 trimmer here, and I'm just cutting down my cardstock, and it is square, so you want 7 5/8 on both sides. And I have tried to find matching cardstocks to the green, the blue, and the purple on the brushstroke color there. And I'm going to cut them down to the right size in my big 12 by 12 trimmer. And then you line it up in the memory keeper, the 1, 2, 3 memory keeper envelope punch, and you line it up to the 2 3/4. You punch it and you score to the A line. And then it should just nestle into the next line on the side. See here, you kind of like, you can see me shift it. That's just because I'm lining it up in the big score line that's going down the left-hand side. And that's how I know where to punch next. So you see me kind of shimmy the cardstock across the like the base there, and that's just me finding where it lines up with the score line that I've just made. And then I am going to fold over my envelope sides. And it does kind of give you a funny peek, but I will show you what I do to make these envelopes. So I do fold on all the score lines, and then here I'll fold it up and I bring in some scissors and I'll just trim off the tip just to cut it so that it closes properly. Now, you may have to trim off a little bit more, which I do with this blue one. But I bring in, I believe this is 1/4 inch Scor-Tape. I like a strong adhesive and I prefer to do the sides. You could absolutely do the bottom flap. I know other people do. I don't, just because I'm always concerned that I'm going to miss where I put my tape and I'm going to seal my envelope shut. So I know that the 2 sides will be fully covered by the bottom flap, so I'm never concerned about adding my tape there, but you absolutely can do it however is easier for you. This is just what's easier for me. And then I'm going to remove the release paper from the Scor-Tape, and then I'm going to fold up the bottom. And if anything kind of runs off of the edge, I just fold it up once I've removed the release paper. And there I have an envelope. So I'm going to stick it in the envelope here, and you're going to see that it's going to fight a little bit on that peak there because now it's thicker. So no problem, I bring in my scissors and I just trim a bit more off. I see where it's bending because of the fold, and I trim a little extra off, and then it closes perfect. See? And then I do flip it over and take off that little tip of the bottom. I mean, you could round that over. You could do whatever you like with it. You could circle punch or like round the corners as well. I didn't. You can. Because there is a rounder on the 1, 2, 3 memory punch, but I didn't use it. So that's how I make my envelopes. And I did put Scor-Tape as well on the front, but I leave the release paper on there so that she can remove it when she goes to mail them or seals the envelope, whatever she wants to do. So that is the card I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. I'd love if you leave me a like, leave me a comment. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much, guys, and I cannot wait to see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.